Very good evening. 7 o'clock Friday night, and we started bang on time. That's the first time ever I've watched that, but never mind. It's there's a shock for us all. Anyway, it's the football pitch here live on YouTube with myself, Cammy McDonald, Dennis Newell, and joined by special guest, go to the podcast world. It's and Spurs fan, although I think he's trying to keep that one quiet. It's Andy Burrows. Burrows, how we doing, mate?
I'm good, Cammy. Dennis, always a pleasure. I said to you before we started recording, though, I don't think you could have picked a worse week to have a Tottenham fan on the show. But always a pleasure, lads.
Well, you've got a whole season. You've got a whole season, Andy. So you might be counting your blessings that it's only this one you're running out.
I know. True. Ask me in about 3 months. It could be worse.
That's right. So we'll take it as it comes. Yeah.
Dennis, what about yourself? How's things? Obviously, we've missed you the last couple of weeks. How are you getting on?
I'm fine. I'm I'm okay now.
Good. That's brilliant. Superb. Andy, the last time we had you on, I think it was just before the European game, the European final with Manchester United. And you were pretty much undecided as to what was going to happen with Big Ange. Obviously, Big Ange has left. But you brought in Thomas Frank from Brentford, a guy with, obviously, Premier League experience. Done a fantastic job at Brentford. What a job he has done. But as your banner says, leave you out. So the board holding you back, do you feel?
Oh, big time, mate. I mean, Thomas Frank, I think Thomas Frank will end up being a good manager. I think he is a good manager, to be fair. I think he'll do well at Tottenham. But it doesn't matter how well you do at Tottenham. No disrespect, but once you've got that bald twat in charge, nothing's ever going to change at Tottenham, mate. He needs to be gone. Because you only got to look at the shambles that is this week. Arsenal done in 2 hours what we couldn't do in 12 days. It's absolutely embarrassing. The guy just doesn't care about football. He would rather care about Beyonce, or he'd rather care about the NFL selling out the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. As much as I love my NFL, the last thing he cares about is the football team. And all while that man is in charge of our football club, we are never, ever, ever going to do anything of great significance. He comes out with comments with Gary Neville on the overlap. I want to win the Premier League. I want to win the Champions League. You've got absolutely no chance of doing that if you can't attract any players. That Eze deal should have been done and dusted within 2 or 3 days. Should have been signed, sealed, delivered. So I've kind of argued with people this week. I've got no bitterness towards Arsenal. Fair play. They swooped in. They've done in 2 hours what we couldn't do in 12 days. It sums Daniel Levy up as a chairman. It sums him up as a person. He does not care about Tottenham Hotspur, the football team. All he cares about is making money for Tottenham Hotspur, the company, the brand, the concerts, the boxing, everything else but the football. Every now and again, he'll sprinkle something in there. You might get a sprinkling of, oh, God, we've got him. But when's the last time that you guys can honestly tell me, like, wow, I can't believe Tottenham signed him? We got Harry Kane come through the ranks. We had all these other players that come through the ranks. All these kind of players. But there hasn't been one moment in the last X amount of years where people have gone, wow, what a signing that is for Tottenham. Players have signed and become good players, which is great. But this Eze signing, this Eze deal would have been like, wow, we've got one of England's finest, like up and coming youngsters. Will you still call him? Crystal Palace's best player. You know, one of the best players they've ever had, and they've had some great players over the years. Ian Wright, Mark Bright, some great players. Tottenham will never move forward while Daniel Levy's there. Ever. Nothing will happen until some Saudi comes in and takes over Tottenham. I don't care who comes in and takes over. Cammy, you could win the lottery tomorrow, mate. I'd have you as my chairman over him. Honestly, the guy's atrocious, mate. He is an absolute cancer to our football club, and nothing will change while he's there.
Yeah, from one ball twat to another one, Andy, if you want me as chairman, you know.
I respect you far more than I respect Daniel Levy, mate.
Hey, listen, I hope so, mate. I'm cuddling up to you in a fortnight, but never mind.
Yeah, me and you, this time in 2 weeks, me and you could be together, mate.
Yeah, indeed we will be. First time. You know, it's taken us to get to Washington, you know, but anyway, we'll come on to that towards the end of the podcast, I think. I mean, you're saying obviously you missed out on Eze. You missed out on the guy who went to Manchester United rather than obviously go to Spurs to play with his manager Thomas Frank, or his former manager Thomas Frank. So that's another signing you've missed out on. It does just smack of contentment, that Spurs under Levy, as you say, he doesn't want to break the bank, bring in big players, bring in big money signings who are going to make a difference. And as you say, have you challenging for the real European trophy? Have you challenging for the Champions League? Have you challenged for the Premier League? What you've done last season in the league was absolutely deplorable for a club of Tottenham's size. And as you say, as while Levy's there, running it purely and simply as a business, you're not going to get anywhere.
No, nothing will ever change why that man is at the football club. Nothing. I can say it till the cows come home. And like I was chatting to you on text earlier, I've just shelled out the prices that they're charging to watch Tottenham now as well. I promised like my young daughter that I'll take her to most of the home games this season. Obviously, we've done Burnley last week. Man United at home, £90. Chelsea at home, £90. Aston Villa at home, £70 each. So, and this is each. There's no option for like a junior ticket. So we're paying an absolute fortune. Now, so my daughter's the same price as me. So there's no junior option until they go into the ticket exchange, and then getting two seats together is as rare as rocking horse. You know what? But you're paying an absolute fortune to watch Premier League football right now. And you don't mind if you're Man City or if you're Chelsea or if you're Arsenal, and because you go to games generally thinking that you've got a chance of competing. Daniel Levy cannot make a statement like, I want us to win the Premier League. I want us to win the Champions League. You can't make them statement. And then it's like saying you want to buy a mansion house, but you've got the budget of a shed.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. And that's how Tottenham are operated. He wants all these nice things, but he doesn't want to spend a penny. Or apparently the Eze deal was arguing over the bonuses. That's all it was over, apparently. I listened to a great podcast called The Fighting Cock. It's a really good Tottenham podcast. They were talking about it last night. And apparently it was just all over the bonuses. Levy was like, no, I don't want this. I don't want to pay that. And Palace were like, all right. And in the end, they negotiated a deal, but Arsenal come in straight away and went, we'll pay all the bonuses. He's an Arsenal fan.
Yeah.
As soon as Arsenal were interested, he was always going to go there. And I don't blame Eze. I don't even blame Arsenal. I don't blame Arsenal as much as that pains me to say it. Like I said to you at the start, they've done in 2 hours what we couldn't do in 12 days. That sums Daniel Levy up. He will always try and penny pinch here, there, and everywhere. But then I'm seeing like 4 nights Beyonce sold out, weekends for the NFL sold out, boxing sold out. It's if we get Savinho, then I'll be amazed if he does come. Brandon's right, to be fair.
Andy, I'm looking at something while you were discussing that. You're actually in a close season. You've got the third most spent in the summer. You've spent 122 million with Liverpool, 185 and 211 Chelsea, and then Man City have only spent 113 million. Now, what is the real issue if you're spending?
The difference is they've bought it, but they've bought it on class. We bought it on what could be good in 2 or 3 years. We haven't bought it on the here and now, really. If you look at the players that we're bringing in, we're saying, oh, they might be good in 2 to 3 years. And Archie Gray, etc., Bergvall, all these guys that we're bringing in. Brendan Johnson even is our top goal scorer last year on 14 goals? Potential. You bring in Eze, you bring in like Savinho, that like Brandon just mentioned there. They're top quality players, but they're going to want top quality money. And Daniel Levy is tighter than a duck's arse. It's not going to happen.
So you're bringing in these players effectively, obviously, with a sell-on. That's the whole idea behind it. And Spurs should not be a club thinking about the future, bringing in players who you can possibly move on. Do a Gareth Bale with, buy him cheap and punt him for 100 million. That's the thinking there. I'm pretty sure. And again, that's going to line the pockets. If you're bringing in players, you're looking at FFP and whatever else. So if you're bringing in these guys for not a great deal of money with a potential sell-on fee, that's the thing. Again, he's looking at FFP, I'm quite sure. And clubs aren't successful when they do that. Paris Saint-Germain have proved that. Manchester City have proved it. Liverpool have gone ahead and proved it there, as Dennis says, they've spent 190 odd million. They want to win things. They're not interested in, let's see how we can balance the books in 3 or 4 years' time.
The problem I see is
no, because if you win things, you balance the books naturally. If you win the Premier League,
But you've got a difficult one there. If you want a quick fix, you can spend money, it becomes dead money, Andy. That's always been my view. That if you're going to spend £50 million on a player, as a business, whether it is tiddlywinks you're running or snakes and ladders or whatever else, and it's a business, you need to make sure that you're not going to lose out of it. Now, I'm not going to defend Levy for a minute because I know he's not been liked at the club, and I also think he hasn't done a great job. But if you're going to spend £50 million or £150 million on, say, 3 players, maybe through the spine of your team, and two of them don't work, and they're experienced players, you've just lost £100 million. Now, Cammy's mentioned the point about for the future selling on. Celtic have a problem with that up here, that they don't seem to even be interested in keeping players for any length of time, which I'll come on to. But I can see a point that if he comes out and explains what the scenario is with the finances is against being targeted as being very, very miserable, then you could maybe understand it a bit more. But I know where the frustration's coming from Tottenham. One of my colleagues at work who's been on the show, he's in the same mould as yourself, exactly the same. And I hear it from him. But I also look at it from what he's trying to do and run that business. And the problem is he's lost sight of what the true reality of that club is to entertain the Tottenham supporters. Yeah. And that's the problem you've got. Usually paying public, and he's been disrespectful to you because he's either not coming out to have that conversation, and then the supporters go, no, we don't want that. We want the quick fix. Sorry, if you don't like the quick fix, we'll get another chairman in that's going to be able to compete with the top clubs in the Premiership. And I think that's maybe the communication has been given out wrongly. And if he's doing that and it's deliberate, then you need to get somebody new in. And fresh blood probably is what's needed anyway, because he's been there a long while. And for years now, the supporters have always wanted him out for where I'm sitting. So there must have been a point, though, Andy, when he was doing a good job for the club. I don't know when that was, though.
Well, he got 100 million for Gareth Bale, but that's on Gareth Bale. That's not on Daniel Levy. You know, that's Gareth Bale was wanted by Real Madrid. The Madrid decided, okay, right, we'll end up spending whatever we need. You know, but that's the last time Daniel Levy did something substantial for Spurs. He brought in 100 million, spent a lot of that money reasonably well, and got you, I think, to the semi-final, the final of the Champions League. Yeah, fine, that was a fluke. Let's be brutal, Andy. That was a fluke that everything came together, you know. That's not going to happen now without big investment in a team. And if you're not prepared to pay Eze £5, £6, £7 million bonus or whatever it is, you know, in terms of wage, but you're prepared to pay 60 million, 70 million pound transfer fee, why are we splitting hairs over £6 or £7 million, Dennis, if it's going to be what gets you into success?
Well, it depends how Levy actually looks at this, because if he's running this, and I keep repeating it, as a business, it's the whole package he's got. We are talking about concerts and whatever else. That then comes in under that one umbrella where he looks at it and goes, here's the finances here, and he collates them all together. The football is only a minor part of it then. Because when you look at the pie and you carve it up, all these events and everything else, you'll probably find that the football's maybe not even an equal part of it. So therefore, he's not going to concentrate and put his energies and efforts into it when he's maybe losing profit for another part of the business and ploughing it into the football. But see, if you look, I don't know, Andy, what would you expect the club to do now to make sure that you don't have a banana skin throughout the whole season? You know, what's the way forward for the club? I know you want him out. So where do they go? Is there going to be a riot with supporters going mad if he's losing the next 2 games? Or does he get rid of the manager because he's fed up taking abuse and just blames it somewhere else? So I don't know, Andy.
I think there'll be a big protest at the Bournemouth game.
Right.
I think there'll be a big protest at the Bournemouth game next Saturday, which I'm going to. But We've had all these protests before. Nothing changes with this
nothing
man. I don't think
changes.
he cares. I think he loves it. If you have a protest, I think he sits there. He doesn't give a shit. He loves a protest. That boy.
Yeah.
He'll probably come out and do it himself and hold a banner. He doesn't care. As long as he's sitting there rubbing his hands, worrying about what he's got and who he's got. He honestly does not care. He won't. We could all chant Levy out next weekend, and we will chant it. Nothing will change.
Right. But what do you want to see change? I mean, without stating the obvious again, what do you really want to see changing?
We need
If
new
you
ownership.
were controlling that club, what would you do?
New ownership, 100%. If I could sprinkle some magic dust over White Hart Lane, we need a new owner. That club and you hear time and time again, best stadium in the world, agreed. Probably the best training facility in the world, agreed. Shittest owner in the world, agreed. Everything's there for us, but until someone comes in like that's taken over at Man City or has taken over at Liverpool or here, there, and everywhere, until someone goes, I want to do that at Tottenham, nothing will ever, ever, ever change at that football club. I can guarantee you, if Levy is still there this time next season, we can have exactly the same chat.
Yeah. And that's the problem, I mean, you've got a club there who finished bottom 5 of the English Premier League, still brought in over 100 million quid for the league position. But the Dennis is saying, obviously, their Spurs have spent 120 odd million quid. That's effectively what they got for finishing 15th in the league or 16th in the league. So it's not as if they've invested anything, Dennis. All they've done is hit parity, in terms of the money that they got for Europe, the money that they got last season as well, as I say, for the league position. That's all they've done, so they haven't really invested.
Yeah. And that would be my concern. If he's not coming clean and just sitting down with supporters and giving them a bit of vision of what he wants to make sure that they're happy, then you've got a problem. And that communication is major with clubs. We have it. I mentioned it earlier about Celtic, which we will come on to again, and the financial side of things. And you've got to communicate with supporters. They're the lifeblood of the clubs. But unfortunately, board directors and people at that level don't really care about the fans. Now, somebody might say you're talking rubbish. I know for a fact that they don't. They don't really care. It's about them sitting in their ivory towers with their tartan rugs over their knees and rubbing shoulders with the elite and being in the position that, the only way they'll react and respond is if nobody goes through the gates. That's the only way you'll hit these guys.
That's what I said. I said the only way that Daniel Levy will ever leave is if we don't turn up.
Yes. You're a fair shout. And it's the same with most clubs. The manager
but
he
knows that's never going to happen. I've just done about 300 odd quid on 6 games.
Yeah.
I have more fun watching the Tottenham ladies.
You mentioned that there, and I did mention to Cammy before we came in there. The away games, if you go to Man United,
£30.
You're paying £30, right? How come your own club can charge you more for being a home supporter than you would have to pay going away? I can't get my head around that at all. You're talking about £90 there for a game times 2, right? It would cost you 60 as against 180. It's insulting. It really is. And that alone should be a reason to boycott matches. But again, Andy, with no disrespect to you, if you're going to be daft enough to pay it, you deserve what you get. Cammy was talking about this earlier with Clyde's season ticket. And I said, well, if you're going to pay it, it's your own fault. You have a choice, right? You have a choice.
Don't you get a Clyde season ticket with like Kellogg's Frosties or anything like that nowadays?
No, it's empty Coca-Cola bottles.
I was going to say, you take them to the bottle bank, you get a free Clyde season ticket, don't you?
In fact,
you're right. You're right.
If you go before 12 o'clock, they put your name in the hat for a game.
You get to play centre back. But you're right. Why us mugs? But they know they've got you. That's the thing. They know they've got you. They know that people will want to watch Premier League football. They know that they're going to want to watch Champions League. I'm dreading how much the Champions League's going to cost me this year. Absolutely dreading it. But why mugs like me? I I've got more. I want a good friend of mine, Wayne, and his son was in here earlier, Brandon. It's all about making memories with your kids. I want to make them memories with my daughter. That when she's older and, I'm too old to go to football, she can remember her first time at football was with me. So a lot of it is me taking my daughter to watch Spurs play. I mean, it was only Burnley last week, but the look on her face when we win 3-0, that's something that I go to football for. It's not for Daniel Levy. It's not for everything else. But the prices are, and they talk about this on Talk Sport all the time. They need to look at the pricing of football. I don't know what it's like up in Scotland, but obviously, like you say, the away games down here, £30. Every Category A game, so you're talking Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, West Ham, because it's a London. You're talking £90 a ticket for adults and kids.
Mm-hmm. That's okay, maybe it's a one-off, right? But to pay it week in and week out, or every second week, it's just.
I've got the first. I think I've got the first 6 home games I'm going to. I'm going to all the Tottenham home. I'm going to try and do most of the Tottenham home games this season. So if you add that up, they put them on sale like 2 months early. So the next batch went on sale last Tuesday. So Manchester United, Chelsea, and Aston Villa all went on sale. So you have to buy them all on the same day, or you're not getting a ticket. So you think how much money you're doing on that one day alone. It's not like I can go and buy them the day before. You're buying a batch of tickets all on one day.
What's the price of a season ticket?
So I don't know if Brandon's still here in the chat. You're probably looking at a good couple of grand, maybe 2. Like the highest one, you're probably looking at 4 or 5 grand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
But I go and watch Tottenham Ladies. I go and watch Tottenham Ladies for like £80 for the season. My season ticket at Tottenham Ladies is £80 and my daughter's is free. And that's why I'm always an advocate for like the WSL and what they're doing in the women's game. It's nowhere near as big as the men's game, but it's more affordable for families to go and watch. I go to a lot of the Tottenham Ladies away games. It's like £7 for a ticket, £10 for a ticket to go to an away game. And you get to see some great stadiums.
I'll look at this as well. The women's game is subsidised by you going to your home games because there's money goes to the ladies' football from the men. So when you go through the gate, you're saying you're paying 90 quid. It could well be that 30 quid of that is going to the ladies because they don't contribute really anything other than them playing. They certainly don't generate any cash. And no, so that's a sore point with me as well as the fact that you can pay having to pay £90. But at the same time, that has to be taken into account.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the NBA is the same. I mean, the WNBA, bringing it back to American sport, the WNBA hasn't contributed anything for 30 years of its existence. It is subsidised again by the NBA itself, and I think obviously the WSL, it's the same down south, it's the same up here as well, and women sports people, but basketball players, football players, they all talk about wanting, or some of them, talk about wanting parity across the wage bracket. That's obviously never, ever going to happen, just purely and simply because of what the men's game generates versus what the female game generates, Andy.
Yeah, no, you're 100%, mate. I mean, I've been a big advocate for the women's game. And I've traveled around the country again, taking my daughter, who's football mad. The men's game could learn a lot from women's football. It really, really could, whether that's from pricing, which I know, but the way that it's more welcoming, home fans sit with away fans, etc., etc. It's still the same game, but there's not that tribalism. There's not that hatred. There's not. You can sit in the stand. You can sit there with your pint and watch the game, etc., etc. It could learn a lot as people shit on the women's game a lot. Premier League and the men's football could learn a hell of a lot from the women's game, the way it's conducted off the pitch.
Yeah. And you'll see that as well at Dunstable Town. I'm quite sure you'll see that as well, where a kind of similar vibe almost, where you'll be in with the away fans, I'm assuming, or the home fans if you're going to an away game. So it's just the top leagues, the Premier League down south, well, obviously the top 4 leagues you've got down there in terms of obviously segregation. It's the same up here as well. But I mean, I've noticed that I've been going to some minor league football. I'm at, believe it or not, Cowdenbeath against Caledonian Braves tomorrow, covering that for the radio. But I've noticed that as well. In terms, obviously, fans are all lumped together, you know, and they're having a pint. It's a social club. There's a social environment there. It definitely makes watching a game of football much more pleasant than sat in a stand screaming and hurling abuse at the opposite stand.
Yeah, when you really do strip it back, you're just other humans shouting at other humans over a game of football.
Yeah,
crazy.
It's mental. Again, we're going to see that in a couple of weeks. You know, we're going to be sat in beside Giants fans and whatever else. You know, obviously, it's only soccer, football that does that segregates the supporters. It doesn't happen in any other sport across the globe.
No, it's great. We can learn. Thing is, I say we could learn a lot from like American sports. They'll never try it here because they know what will happen. Even if you've done, imagine Tottenham, West Ham, and all the fans could sit together. I wouldn't take my daughter. I wouldn't go to the game.
No, and that's the problem, obviously, with British sports or British football. You know. So anyway, right, we've touched on the problems with British football. If we look at the issues that we've got with Scottish football, Andy, I texted you this afternoon. Obviously, it's a tongue in cheek a bit, mate. You know, in terms, obviously, you can shit on the Scottish game, but let's be fair. Scottish sides in Europe this week, they've had a decent start. You know that we certainly have, but we've had a lousy week in terms of started with Rangers. A dreadful performance, a dreadful first 7 or 8 minutes. 3-1, eventually losing to Club Brugge. Celtic then are at home to some side for the minor leagues, you know, in terms of Kazakhstan, draw nothing each. Hibs last night getting beat 2-1. I thought actually Hibs, to be fair, played pretty well, you know, and were a bit unlucky to lose that game to Legia Warsaw. And then with Aberdeen last night, coming for 2 down against 10 men and getting a 2 each draw against Steaua Bucharest, or FCSB as they are called now, you know. So it's not been a great week for Scottish fans, Andy. I know obviously you've got an allegiance to a club up here. You've said already you're coming up in February for a game. What's your thoughts? What can we do to improve the game up here?
Oh, Jesus Christ. I think like Dennis said when I was on with you the back end of last year, the funding has to come into the Scottish football. Do you think we underestimate some of the teams who play in Europe? I don't think that matters to Scottish teams. Honestly, I can't genuinely remember the last time I sat here and watched, maybe when Celtic got to the Europa League final not so long ago. It comes back to what Dennis said at the end of last year. It comes back to funding. It comes back to TV rights. But like I said to you guys in our little group chat that you've got for your show, why you've only got 2 teams representing your league worldwide, nothing will really change. I mean, we kind of get that a little bit in the Premier League, but you can go, Cammy, you'll see it when me and you are in Washington in 2 weeks. You'll see Liverpool shirts, you'll see Arsenal shirts, you'll see Man City, you'll see Tottenham, you'll see etc., etc., etc. Most Scottish teams, when I go abroad, it's either Rangers or Celtic. You might get the odd one here or there. But if you look at Scotland as a global brand, the Scottish League, when we're out there, we'll do an experiment, Cammy. When we're in a bar or whatever, and we'll get chatting to some of the American people, we'll say to them, name me 4 teams that play soccer in Scotland. They'll be able to name us 2, which will be Rangers and Celtic. That's because, you know, and that comes back again to Dennis's point that he made with me at the end of last year. Funding. It's funding. But all why the Premier League and La Liga and Serie A, why all these leagues are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the revenue is going into them. I've sat and watched a lot of Scottish football at the start of the season. I watched Sky Sports coverage. I think I put in the group chat to you, I was watching Rangers versus, where were they? Hibs away, was it? Hibs away. And it wasn't even sold out. And that's the first game of the season. And you're thinking to yourself, hang on a minute.
Motherwell.
This is the first game of the season. But I think Motherwell, sorry, that's it. You guys might be able to testify more than me. I mean, you're kind of stuck in the rut up there where you know that you're competing for 3rd and 4th place. I think that gap might this season, because Rangers are so shit, that might change this season, but that's due to Rangers. You know, Dennis has obviously got some views on what Rangers have done managerial wise. But again, is that the club? Is that the culture? You've got to give a manager time. He failed in the Premier League. Scottish football as a whole, I personally think is a good 15 to 20 years behind the Championship when you look at global brands. Wrexham have done what they've done with their TV deal with Disney is great. But Scottish football, it's two teams. And that pains me to say it because I've got you guys, I know a lot of Scottish friends, and I know a lot of people in your group chat defend Scottish football. And that's Scottish people defending their league. And I wouldn't expect anything else. When you look at it as a worldwide global brand and how it can get better, it can get better by having more funding. It will never get more funding because you only ever have two teams competing for everything.
Yeah.
So until you break that norm, until you get a millionaire come over in and take over Aberdeen or take over Hearts or take over, Kilmarnock, and something happens, but no one will ever do that because a millionaire or billionaire will be looking at it going, right, why would I take over someone that isn't Rangers and Celtic? Because it means nothing up in Scotland. There's two teams, and I know all the teams are very well supported, but apart from them two teams, and I don't generally know what the answer is because we can sit here and talk funding, but that's never going to happen because of the way it's not coming. And Cammy, I don't think it ever will in the next 15 years.
No.
You can go back all them years when you had Gordon Strachan, Gordon Jury, you had Paul Gascoigne coming up there. When's the last real big name that come up to Scotland and you went, wow, how the hell has he ended up in Scotland? You got Glasgow Rangers, Jack Grealish, they were after Jack Grealish. Everyone knows it. And he went, not a chance in hell. No way am I going to Glasgow Rangers. I'd rather go to Everton. That's how bad. There hasn't been a player of the Gascoigne ilk, the Henrik Larssons of this world. Yeah. Back in the day, I used to love sitting down going, oh my God, it's Rangers Celtic today. And now you're just like, Aaron Ramsey. Who?
Next one's even better, Andy.
But Joey Barton, I mean, say no more. But you haven't had that ilk. And Scottish football, when I was growing up, like I've said to you guys before, you attracted some big, big names to go and play for Glasgow Rangers. I mean, I've been there. I've been to Ibrox. I know the passion. I know but when you step outside of there, that's it. You can go to other countries and people can talk to you about Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, Man City. Promote Scottish football because they want Rangers and Celtic. I think someone put in the group chat the other day, they want Rangers and Celtic to be the poster boys. And without them, Scottish football's fucked. Plain and simple. Yeah.
That's the problem, Dennis. As Andy says, it's two teams and the perception is that's all we have in Scotland, So you're never going to attract a guy in his prime. Yeah, we've got Aaron Ramsey, we've got Joey Barton, we've got Joe Hart there. As Aaron says, he's clutching at straws. But we've got these guys who have came in the twilight of their career. We ain't going to attract big stars without the money. And the money just isn't there purely and simply because we are bereft of other sides giving Rangers and Celtic a challenge.
Well, we can be brutal about it. The problem is I'm probably the most negative it's ever on here. But the thing is, being brutal about it, Scotland would be classed as a graveyard for senior players like Schmeichel even pretty come up, right? Mm-hmm. You look at the other one, it's just going my mind. He was at Leicester, Vardy.
Yeah, Jamie Vardy.
He would be perfect to go to Celtic because he knows the manager, and that would be perfect. Now, until you start he's got a couple of years left in him, and that would actually boost the Scottish Premiership because he's not done, in my eyes, for that kind of level of football. But for progression, when you look at the other side of the coin, anything that turns out to be good in Scotland just now gets punted. So you're left with the same level of player that is not taking it to the next level. And somebody mentioned it there that basically we don't get international coverage in the TV. Yeah. And I go back to it. The product's not good enough. People are not seeing good football to the level that justifies TV company plowing money into it. And it's riddled with that. Now, at the start of the year, we've seen maybe one or two more games than we normally do. I think the BBC have covered a few. But when you look at games that you really want to watch, you have to pay extra money for it. And to be perfectly honest, you've already rattled our gums about the fees getting into games. I certainly wouldn't be forking out money to watch some of these games on Premier Sports or whatever ones you want to talk about. That extra game that you might want to see. So Joe Public, again, is stitched up with it. There's always somebody wanting to make a quick buck rather than let them see a good product. If football was a cinema in Scotland, it'd be shut. Because if you look at the last couple of games with Rangers, they've drawn 2. The performances have been shocking. The new players that they've signed have been shocking. The managers come in with very little, I would say, tactical awareness of how to go and beat the opposition. And I said before we came in here, when he was at Southampton, I thought his team were dreadful, Russell Martin. And yet Rangers have given him the job of coming up here. He probably didn't know one Scottish player, so who's he going to bring in? He'll go and get these cheap foreigners that basically come in and you're hoping they're going to hit the ground running. They're not. So what happens then? We're ending up with a bad product again. And Celtic are not much far behind them. They just don't want to spend money. And that's the point when we're talking about almost a comparison with Tottenham. Celtic are cash rich, and the manager is getting itchy feet, and I know he is, because he done the exact same thing, and he left Celtic in the middle of his contract because the board wouldn't give him money to buy players. So, you know, you look at it and you say to yourself, what is the club actually doing? I watched that Celtic board looking in that game the other night, and I looked down at them and I thought, are you supporters or have you just come in for the car park? Because you've got to see that product as murder on the park. You won't compete in Europe with them. And again, they're quite cocky about it because they know the Scottish Premier League, as Andy's rightly said, out with the top 2. You've got Hearts and you've got Aberdeen, you've even Dundee United, you've even St Mirren. They'll all compete a bit, right? But over the course of the season, they all level themselves out. And that's why Celtic, who are a wee bit more consistent because they're playing a bit more money for players, and that's the only difference. There's not a big gulf between Celtic and Rangers and the rest of the league. It's the difficulty of having that consistency all the time.
Yeah,
you know. So I just look at it. And
I could put Sheffield Wednesday in your league, and they'd win it.
Yes.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Yes, and I mean it comes back there. I know Graham's asked, or the Gorgie Boys podcast. That's Graham, obviously, who's occasionally on here. Graham Duffy. He's saying obviously the Scottish football. Do we underestimate some of the teams we play in Europe? I don't think we do. I think we expect it. As Scotland, we should compete with sides for Norway. We should compete with sides for Kazakhstan. We should compete with sides from Romania, you know, or wherever else. And I don't think we are being cocky. I don't think we are overselling the game. I think, in all honesty, I know we don't generate a lot of finances, but you're not telling me that the SPL generates less finances than what the Polish Superliga does. You know, nobody can tell me that because I'm pretty sure I've been to games in Poland. There's 3 men and a dog there, you know, and Andy, respectfully, you get more folk probably at Dunstable Town or at Spurs Ladies, you know, than you do to watch a Polish Premier League game. You know, I've been to games in Portugal where they charge €15 for a top flight game. I think I said it on here before. We just don't seem to be interested in generating the right revenue. We want to, as you said, Dennis, we screw fans blind. You know, rather than turning around and saying, well, we'll charge you 15, 20 quid for a game, we want to screw fans blind. And Andy, that's probably why Motherwell Rangers wasn't a sellout. Because Motherwell will be trying to screw the fans and make as much money as they can, charging 40 quid a ticket. When nobody's want to pay that, it's still the summer holidays up here, you know, so nobody's want to pay that. That's why you get empty seats. Not the fact that it's a bad product, but because it's badly sold.
Yeah, but see, Cammy, see if you look at it, and I look at where people have got to stand up and be counted for. You can look at Celtic's investment in the close season, right? And it's been very, very poor in relation to maybe increasing the quality. But the 2 most expensive signings of last year, Ingles and Trusty, didn't even start the game during the week. So what does that tell you about the signings for him last year? That you've got to say, two of your most... Ingles was the most expensive player Celtic have ever bought. So you look at it and you say to yourself, there's two players that didn't start. I look right away and go, what did the manager or the club see in these players? Because you're in Europe, you're in the Champions League, and there you're left with Scales, who is not, in my eyes, only my opinion, good enough to play with Celtic, never mind playing the Champions League. Then you get Ralston coming off on as well, who is on because Johnson is now out with a long-term injury, and that'll be a permanent fixture. Two of your back four are struggling then. And then you look elsewhere in the park and you say to yourself, how is this actually improving it? When I just look at it and go, this is not improving. You've got Ida who is up front, and James Forrest. James Forrest has seen better days, and he's been a magnificent servant. But he starts the game, and Ingles only comes on after 70 minutes. So you say to yourself, what is wrong? No wonder they're not beating that team. And it was a terrible, terrible performance. The same as what Rangers was during the week, rather than just pick out the one. But that was, I just can't get my head round why people are looking and saying, we're not progressing. We're not progressing because we're bringing the wrong players in. We're spending money that is going down the toilet with bad buys. And then when a good player does appear, he gets sold and goes straight out the door.
Yeah, Maeda's an empty jersey as well. You missed him. He's definitely an empty jersey. But right, there we go. It's been asked several times, Andy. We've got two Scotsmen and an Englishman on. Your point of view, I think, on that one was they'll get relegated. I don't even think they'd do that. I think they get kicked out 4 games into the season, 5 games into the season for offering nothing. And I think that is the problem. That Rangers would definitely struggle. Celtic would definitely struggle. I don't think they would even offer anything now at the Premier League, Andy, whereas before they would have been something for the Premier League down south. They brought fans or they brought it in. But you're selling out games anyway. England doesn't need Rangers and Celtic now in the same way maybe it did at the advent of the Premier League 30 years ago.
Yeah.
20 years ago,
I think
Rangers and Celtic might have competed.
Sorry, Andy, on you go.
No, it'd be a good show.
Sorry, StreamYard's having an absolute nightmare.
Yeah,
I think Rangers and Celtic.
Joke tonight.
StreamYard's having taken a shit on us tonight, boys. But I think Rangers.
I'll try and answer that while Andy's is stuck. The thing is, we should get Celtic and Rangers into the English Premier League.
20 years ago would have offered a lot to the Premier League.
Yeah.
No, StreamYard's having a fucking shocker tonight, that's for sure. Well, Andy, or you've got Scouse's internet, one of the two.
The point I'd make is...
I'm not that cheap. I actually pay for the good one.
A Scouse steel cells is Mendes for Liverpool. Right, sorry, on you go. Right,
he's got a hamster running around a wheel.
Yeah, right. So you were saying, Andy, obviously, you reckon Rangers and Celtic get relegated wouldn't offer much now? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would go down. I think they'd offer a lot support-wise. We know how well Rangers are supported and Celtic are supported. They'd make for a good atmosphere, but we have that week in, week out in the Premier League now. We don't, for us, that's just called Saturday. No disrespect, but we get that every single week. Every Saturday we get that. Rangers and Celtic they'd be relegated by March.
Yes.
I'm surprised. Out by Christmas, I would reckon, but like European season, but sorry, Dennis,
would be good because parachute payment, Cammy, they could come back up here and clean up.
That's what it would take. 5 years in England. 5 years in England for Rangers and Celtic. As you say, 3 years of parachute payments for the time they get back out of the League One, and into the Premier League. I think generally, that's it. As you said earlier on, Andy, I think Rangers and Celtic would struggle even to compete in the Championship now. You look at the quality of England's second league in comparison with even what Rangers and Celtic bring to the Premier League up here, I think you're right. I think they would struggle even in the Championship. You know, you could bring a Sheffield Wednesday side up here and they would run Rangers and Celtic close. You know, even Wrexham, who've come up 4 leagues in 3 seasons, or three leagues in 4 seasons, sorry. You know, I think they would even do a job up here now, obviously with the finances that they've managed to generate and that they get for the Championship. I think that's Rangers and Celtic would be looking at League One, you know, in all seriousness. So there we go. Right, one more question in terms of English football again. Gorgie Boys podcast again, Graham. Obviously, he's a Liverpool supporter. So we might have covered that. We haven't done, Graham. How do we see that Isak situation being sorted out? Do we think he settles at Newcastle, or do we think Liverpool are going to get him? Dennis, I'll let you come in on that one.
Who knows? Seriously, who knows? Probably nobody knows, because it's, again, we're talking here about the professionalism of the English Premier League, and we've talked about Tottenham not having that. You know, you look at how would the English Premier League got on if they had to actually work with the type of funding that we have in Scotland? It'd be totally shambolic and probably 10 times worse than Scotland. It's a cash cow, and people just don't know how to run the businesses. When we're talking about this example, I just think that there is a lot of people in there that are milking it dry and are incompetent, and they don't react as quickly as they should, because it's an easy business to be in a lot of ways. You know, they're not working a cutthroat industry where it's a steel business and it chops 1,500 people's jobs and stuff like that. It's not, they get away with it. You know, and I look at it and say to myself, how much influence have these actual agents got? Far too much. They've ripped the guts out of football, and that includes the north of the border and south. And I'll tell you what, personally, I would really scrap the bulk of them, because they're only there to generate money. They're not there for the better of the game. So the question, I drifted away from the actual answer. I don't know the answer to that, Cammy, when that'll be sorted out. Yeah.
Well, we've got 9 days to sort it, 10 days to sort it before, obviously, the transfer window shuts. Andy, I mean, we're looking at a similar situation again. If we move across the other side of the pond, you know, we're looking at a similar situation with the star player of Washington, you know, down in tools and whatever else. You know, it looks as though it's going to be the same situation. But what's best for the clubs? Are Newcastle better just cutting their losses and saying, right, let's try and get 120 million for him, because he was a star striker in England last year? Do we try and get 120 million for him, or do we keep an unhappy player at the club?
I would love to say that they just keep him and let him rot, because Liverpool aren't going to come in and, you know, Liverpool said they're not going to be held to ransom. I think Newcastle will have to lower their evaluation. I think player power will always win, unfortunately. Contracts mean nothing. I think he'll go to Liverpool. Good riddance. I hope he breaks his leg in the first game. The guys, what he's done to Newcastle is absolutely disgusting. But it's the world we live in now, the modern day footballer. Pierre Van Hooijdonk tried it years and years ago, and he ended up eating humble pie and having to stay at Nottingham Forest. But it's the world we live in now, mate. Look at the guy from Brentford. He's trying to get a move to Newcastle. It seems to be the modern day thing. They delete everything from their social medias, etc., etc., etc. I would love Newcastle to go, nah, you ain't going. You're not going. And the thing is, if they don't get a replacement, he won't be going. He'll have to eat humble pie. Because if they don't get anyone in, he's staying put. And then he's going to have to run the gauntlet of probably one of the most passionate fan bases in English football. I feel so sorry for Newcastle, because, you know, great club, great fan base. I've been up there a good few times. I know a few people that support Newcastle. They don't deserve this. They've given him the platform to perform on. But this is not the first time, and this won't be the last time that we see it. This is football of the last 20 years. This is what footballers do. Contracts mean absolutely nothing. We signed Gareth Bale to an extra 1-year deal only so we can sell him for 100 million. That's the only reason we've done it. Let's be honest. You know, that's football. I hope Newcastle don't sell him. If they do, I hope, like I say, I hope he breaks his leg in the first game because I think it's terrible what he's done.
Yeah,
again,
but
is
again,
that the agent? Is that agent driven?
Oh, it's agent. But you think it's agent driven because say Liverpool do come in with, well, for argument's sake, we'll say 125 million. If the agent's on 5% of that, wow. You know, and the Geordie Boy podcast there, Newcastle Liverpool is going to be on Monday. The atmosphere is going to be off the charts. I hope Newcastle absolutely stuff them without Isak and go, there you go, mate. You know, and this is not against Liverpool. Liverpool, if they get a strike, but do you really want a player like that? Because he could go. Someone rang up Talk Sport on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And he could have 3 great seasons at Liverpool, banging goals. We'll say 35 goals a season. Real Madrid are going to come knocking then. We all know what he's going to do. We know he's going to down tools. We know he's going to sell his house. We know he's going to throw his toys out the pram and say, I want to go to Real Madrid. Done.
Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's Andy, the problem.
There's no loyalty. There is no loyalty from players anymore.
No,
because
them days are long gone. Steven Gerrard's of this world and them like Ledley King and people like that. I mean, how much money is too much money? This is what gets me about modern day football. It's multi-millionaires arguing over getting more money. You know, and I get the prestige of playing for Liverpool. I get that. And if he had gone about it the right way, like Eze has, and gone, look, I've done all I can do here. I want to. This is Crystal Palace to now Arsenal, as much as it pains me to say it, but Arsenal are bigger than Crystal Palace. Liverpool are bigger than Newcastle football-wise. We can talk fan base, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Liverpool are probably the biggest football club in Britain, arguably. Okay, so I get the move. I get him wanting to go and play in the Champions League and be competitive in the Champions League. But the way he's gone about it is atrocious. He should have done behind closed doors. And now he's come out and said, Newcastle have promised me this. And Newcastle, hence why Newcastle had Eddie Howe to come out with a statement today. And it's all tit for tat. It should have been behind closed doors and gone, look, lads, I want to go to Liverpool. How do we do this the right way? Newcastle might not have liked it, but they could have gone about it the right way. The fact that he's sold his house, the fact that he went and trained with his old team in whether it was Spain or Portugal, wherever he went. He's all this modern day. I've deleted my social media with Newcastle and all that crap. He's taken a huge risk because I promise you, if Newcastle do not get anyone by next Monday, when the transfer deadline, you've got 9 days now till the window shuts at 7 p.m. in the UK. I don't know what time it shuts in Scotland. It shuts at 7 p.m. here a week on Monday. If Newcastle haven't got anyone, he's staying. And then he's royally screwed because he's going to have to run the gauntlet. But like someone rang up Simon Jordan's show the other day on TalkSport. I listened to that a lot. If he scores 10 goals in 14 games, football fans will be very forgot about. Done. Pierre Van Hooijdonk, perfect example. Bang goals in for Forest when he come back, then left a year later. Clearly forgotten. And unfortunately, like I said, Dennis's point earlier, why mugs like me and Newcastle fans, and we'll still all pay our money and we'll buy our shirts, until that aspect of football changes, footballers won't care.
Yeah. It's we're football supporters, that's the thing, you know, and the name itself says it all. And we'll be exactly the same. If Terry McLaurin signs a deal, we'll be exactly the same. We'll forget the fact that he's quibbling over 5 or 6 million quid, which is fucking nuts. Absolutely freaking bedlam, you know. But anyway, that's for another show and another time, you know. But we've debated that one long and hard, and I'm quite sure we'll still be talking about it at the Giants game, unfortunately, you know. But that's for another story. I'm going to throw it for the ridiculous to the sublime here, because earlier on, Aaron asked a question. Now, Andy, you're probably not aware of this one. You mentioned Clyde earlier on. Clyde have been ground sharing at Hamilton Accies Stadium in Hamilton, funnily enough. So they've been ground sharing there. Clyde, who for 15 years, 20 years were based in Cumbernauld. So they moved a couple of years ago, had a big fallout with North Lanarkshire Council, moved to Hamilton. At the end of last season, Hamilton had a massive fallout with the owners, almost went out of receivership and everything else. They now play their football in Cumbernauld at Clyde's old stadium. So Aaron was asking us, what do we think of the Hamilton situation? And Aaron, my answer is it's nuts. It's absolute crazy that you've got two clubs playing in their not in their own stadium, and the clubs are playing in each other's ground. To me, that's nuts. And what's happening at Hamilton is nothing short of deplorable, because I think you're looking, Dennis, at a football club that could well be going out of business, in terms of obviously the financial impact. They've got a ban on transfers, everything else. They really, really are up shit street, mate, to be honest.
Without going into too much detail about Hamilton, it's got to have been self-inflicted, Cammy, because they would never have had that problem if they hadn't come up against the issues that has got them into that hole. And I don't want to split hairs and say exactly what the difference between right and wrong is, but Hamilton are at Broadwood Stadium in Cumbernauld for the simple reason they've messed up their own place, right? Clyde have got somewhere to go. Clyde are nomads in Scottish football. The only time I realised Clyde had a ground was when they were at Shawfield, way back in the 60s, probably 70s. And then they were all over the place. And then they ended up in Cumbernauld, which, to be honest, and touching on it before, was never a great hunting ground for supporters to go and watch games that were neutrals. I mean, it was a cold stadium in the winter, but a good stadium. And then they changed it to an artificial surface, which is not everybody's cup of tea. I've yet to see a good match on artificial turf. So, Broadwood Stadium has got its own drawbacks, and Clyde, well, again, you've got to look at the long and short of it. They're not there anymore. You have to put up with it. It's no great. They're at Hamilton. Where will they be in another couple of years, Cammy? That's the points I would look at both their clubs. You said potentially maybe one going down the toilet. It may well do, but is that self-inflicted? And secondly, what is Clyde's long-term vision for the club of where they want to be, instead of continually ground sharing? Because if they're not ground sharing, they're still paying a lot of money for that stadium.
Yeah.
So the two clubs are a bit messed up. That's all I would say. They're messed up, and they really need to look further ahead than this season and see where they're going. But it is crazy. You've got the two of them have just switched like that.
Yeah. And there's another sad indictment on Scottish football. Hamilton had to close their academy last week. Now, Andy, we've sat here tonight, talked about obviously the financial impact on clubs and clubs needing to bring in homegrown players. If you've got a club that's financially up shit street, has got a transfer embargo, and then go ahead and shut their academy, where are you going to be bringing in players from?
Yeah, exactly. One question that I'd like to ask, and obviously I know you guys and obviously the people watching this are all Scottish football fans. With like the Scottish teams that are really struggling, would it not make sense to amalgamate them into one football club? Generally, would that help?
Yeah. No, wait a minute. You've got clubs that if they had 10 supporters, they would still like their own identity.
I get that, but like, if you're really, really struggling, I mean, you've got no academy, you've got no ground, and would it not be better to say have a football club than have no football club? And I get that. I mean, I would hate it if it was Tottenham merging with us. That would never happen down here. But we're talking like, say you are a Scottish club who are like that. The comment there the gentleman just made, like you haven't got an academy, you haven't got this, you haven't got your own ground. I've been there. Like I've been at non-league football where we've ground shared, and it's horrendously bad. Bloody hell, my non-league, when I was growing up, Wilstone, the team that I was at, we had to ground share with Watford at one stage. And that's a non-league team playing at Vicarage Road. It's really bad. I'm just thinking with these teams that have like, you've got no other option. It's either you close down and that's it. You've got no football, or do these two teams go, right, why don't we come together and see if they just put the proposal out there? Why don't we merge the two clubs into one and we haven't got a lot, so let's put what we've got together.
Well, we've already done that and it doesn't work. And the team I'll use is Inverness Cally Thistle. We had two teams in Inverness and amalgamated together, and you think World War had broken out in the Highlands when the two teams were trying to come together. And it upset an awful lot of people, and you can understand it because historically these people have grown up, it's in their blood, and then the two come together. You look where Inverness Cally is. Last year they were actually wrecked, where I was tipping them for promotion and they lost points. and they could easily have been relegated. So it doesn't show for long term that kind of thing works, you know. And somebody's just mentioned Clyde and Hamilton merging together. Maybe.
Why don't they? I mean, it's a crazy idea, and I don't with the affiliations and stuff like that. We're talking about Rangers and Celtic coming down to the Premier League. That wouldn't work. If you really, really wanted to help Scottish football and people down, and I'm talking the English FA, if you really want to help Scottish football, let these Scottish teams enter the FA Cup. Let them enter the League Cup. Let them enter these things and go, right, let's just have a look. Let's see what it would look like if we put Rangers, Celtic, Hearts, Hibs in the FA Cup, in the League Cup. Let's see what happens, because if Tottenham have drawn Hearts away in the FA Cup, everyone's watching that on telly. It's going to be on TV. It's going to be a big deal. It's going to be, wow, England, an English team are playing a Scottish team that isn't in the Champions League. Let's just, for argument's sake, figure out how we would do it, or do you invent some sort of new cup competition that you pit the Scottish teams against the English teams? And we kind of all know what would happen for the first 4 years of that, 5 years of that. England would dominate. But what we would get from that is a little bit of TV revenue. You might get Sky going, hang on a minute, I'll have Hearts versus Arsenal. I'll have Celtic versus Crystal Palace or Aston Villa or Tottenham, etc., etc. And then you're thinking, right, I'll pay X amount of millions to put out on Sky Sports. Or do you do what boxing is doing, and you get the BBC are now going to show boxing on terrestrial TV again? Do the BBC in Scotland and go, right, let's give Scottish football a chance and let's broadcast it for free, and you attract sponsors in that way. But I would do something like that. Like you say, if you want to help these football, you're talking about football clubs going bust. Surely in the modern era, these FAs can come together, but it will never happen because the English, they're talking about the Premier League money filtering down to help out the Championship and League One. They don't care about Rangers, Celtic, Hearts, Hibs, Southampton, Portsmouth, Stockport. They don't care about these clubs. If I was running it and you really want to help Scottish football, I would come up with an idea that they could enter the FA Cup. They could enter the League Cup. We would have a tournament that would include the Scottish clubs to play English club that isn't the Champions League, and you can put it on TV.
Put it on TV. What we do is we do that a half-arsed up here. What we actually do is we have the sides who are in, let's say you are Otto Winstein's trophy, or whatever it is, Andy, for sides in League One and League Two. We do that up here for our three bottom divisions, I think. But then we bring in sides from Ireland and from Wales and throw that in. So as if it's not bad enough where some of our clubs in the lower leagues have to travel from Stranraer to Elgin on a Saturday, we then turn around and say, well, you need to go from Elgin to fucking Wales, or so we make it harder rather than increase the potential for revenue. It's it's just seriously stupid. It's the way we do it up here, but something like that. We had the Anglo-Scottish Cup years ago. Remember?
I remember that. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, we're all old enough just to remember that.
I remember. It's
Listen,
good.
You're going to you would devalue the FA Cup. And I'll tell you what, if you made a comparison, and I'll pick out, say, St Mirren versus Southampton, and you put it on live tonight, and you made a comparison with the viewing figures with West Ham against Chelsea, I think you would find that hardly anyone would watch the Southampton St Mirren. And that's not having a dig at the clubs. That north-south divide will never happen, because the English Premiership, our English FA, will never be prepared to, what would you say, hold up Scottish football because of their deficiencies. They're not there to give them a leg up. No chance. I certainly wouldn't look at it. Scottish football is in a mess because we haven't got the attractive product that you require because the talent is not here. And when I say that, I'm not saying it's bad. What I'm saying is, if you want to give viewing figures up, I don't think we've got the quality here that you have in England by a long, long shot. So we have to look at how people can sell the product better by either getting sponsorship in, and that's got to come from the Scottish FA. You've got to get it marketed properly, and then you can invest in the clubs. And as we're rightly saying, you don't shut down academies. You open academies, but it seems to be we're always at the bottom of the barrel. If anything goes, just chop it. Reserves, chop it. It's all down to finances, but we'll get people, as I say and repeat, at the top of the tree in Scottish football who can't and don't have the ability to go out there and get the correct sponsorship. And I mean, sponsorship, when you look at the size of the world, there's got to be somebody willing to put money in it the way they would put into an individual club to run the club. And they get massive, massive amounts of money from maybe the Middle East or wherever else. That's the kind of sponsorship they should be targeting.
Especially when you go around the world, though. You can find a jock you can go to bloody out of Mongolia, you'll find a jock there somewhere.
Yeah.
That's
right.
I mean?
Everywhere you go, there's a Scottish person.
We Rangers are Celtic top one.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway. So it's a difficult one to actually say how you could combine the two, Andy. I don't think, and certainly in my lifetime, which is probably not much, you will find that they'll come together.
Yeah.
They won't.
It's unfortunate. I think the closest we might get is a ground share. You know, I mean, we'll get two sides in Dundee where I was at a protest on Saturday last week, and there's more space between us and the protesters on the other side of the road than what there is between Tannadice and Dens Park. You know,
they tried it, Andy. They tried it with Hearts and Hibs a long while ago, maybe 30 years ago.
Mercer.
Tried that. Oh, by the way, that Inverness Cali and that join up was nothing like this compared to Hibs and Hearts being suggesting it. That was terrible. And I agree, they should never try and pull these teams together because there's too many people. It's hundreds of years, well, not hundreds, but it's over 100-year history that you've got with these grandparents, etc. And you know yourself, you're trying to introduce your daughter to the Tottenham, and therefore you look at it and say, well, that's the same with these other clubs. You're taking away that history. What happens if Arsenal and Tottenham had to get together? How would you feel about it? No, because then when you're doing that, it's only a financial gain.
I think more for I don't know, League One, League Two, Scottish division clubs.
Yeah.
I'd rather they try and merger than go bust. You know, and I'd be the same. I obviously, Cammy, you know, and Dennis, you know, I love my non-league football and Dunstable. If Dunstable were on the verge of going bust, and our only option was to merge with AFC Dunstable, who ground share with us, I'll be like, well, at least we get some football on a Saturday. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'd rather that than we go bust. I mean, it would split people, and it has been muted. And I think it nearly happened 2 or 3 seasons ago, maybe a bit longer, where the two teams nearly merged, and you have one big football club. And I think more at non-league level and the lower levels, maybe in Scotland, it could work because then you've got one pool of money all coming in, albeit not a lot, or you've got no football and you've got no academy and you've got no, I don't know, the local like Division 1 or Division 2 team in Scotland on a Saturday afternoon. You've got people sitting there going, well, I've got nowhere to go now because both our teams are gone.
Yeah,
but what you find in that, but what you would find there is that what you've got to understand is that when you get out of the Championship, maybe even just outside the Premiership, a lot of these clubs are self-sufficient, Andy. When you look at clubs like, say, Alloa, Airdrie, and places like that, they're all self-sufficient, Morton, etc. They don't get the handouts the way the English football would. You don't get support that would be enough to keep your club running. You really have to bust a gut. And that's why we don't find there's so many clubs going to the wall in Scotland, because they're from hand to mouth, week in and week out, and they cut their cloth accordingly. And because of that, the standard is then less. You'll find that guys, if they had the opportunity, would play non-league football in England rather than play even in our Championship, because
Adam Rooney did it. Adam Rooney did it. They not went for Aberdeen to non-league down south. The Tino go to Salford City or something like that. You know, because there was more money in that. You know, so that's it. But
so we're self-sufficient. I don't think that would happen, and I take totally on board what you're saying, Andy. It's total common sense in relation to how it should work, but it won't happen. And it's survival with these clubs, week in and week out.
It is one of these things, unfortunately. But Andy, obviously, we touched on it earlier on. You've got Manchester City this weekend. Is it Monday? No, it'll be Sunday, I take it. Or is it tomorrow?
Tomorrow, 12:30.
12:30. Early game on Sky, I'm assuming. What's your thoughts? How do you think you'll get on?
We always play all right up there, to be fair. It's one of the grounds where we go where I don't know what it is. We always seem to do okay. I'll take a 1-1 right now if we can go there and get a draw. It's their first home game of the season, though. They've just gone and demolished Wolves. I've benched all my Tottenham players in my fantasy team, apart from one. I think. Yeah.
West Ham have just gone 1-up against Chelsea, and what a strike it was!
Oh, wow.
Absolutely magnificent. And Billy will be delighted with that, Billy Reid. And the boy Sanchez, the guy Sanchez that's in goals with Chelsea, used to play with Brighton. So that'll be rubbing salt into the wind.
Yeah, he's not been a good keeper. But no, Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure. One thing I will say before we go, by the way, should have started the show with this, so apologies I didn't. Dennis, you and I kind of almost crossed paths, but our thoughts go out to Morton manager Dougie Imrie. Obviously, some sad news about Dougie and his family, you know. So let's just leave it at that. But for anybody who knows, thoughts definitely do go out to Dougie Imrie and thinking of him at this time, obviously for him and his family. But other than that, as I say, condolences to him certainly, you know. So. There we are. Apologies, I say, for not mentioning that at the start of the show. I should actually started the podcast with that, but that's where we are on that one. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Andy, thank you so much as always, mate. It's such a great pleasure to get your insight into what's happening down south, even if Tottenham are pissing you off. It always is. And as I say, 2 weeks' time, mate, this it'll probably be this time now. We'll almost be sitting down to our first beer together. And I look forward to that so much. And then again, November and February. Christ, I'll be getting pig sick of you before too long, mate. Thanks as always, mate.
No problem, mate. I love coming on here. Sorry, StreamYard took a dump on us a little bit today, but no, keep up the great work. Like I say, in 2 weeks' time, you and I will be in Washington DC. It'll be, I don't know, middle of the afternoon. We're probably having a pint somewhere. And we're watching the mighty Washington Commanders, mate. Hopefully win the first game of the season. But keep up the great work, lads. Guy at work, we're coming up to see Glasgow Rangers Hearts in February. So we'll get a beer in, Andy. We'll get a beer in. But you enjoy your trip to the States, and we'll get you back on again when you get back. Thank you, boys. I really appreciate it. Good, Andy.
Cheers, mate. Thanks very much, Matt. On that note, it's time to say good night. What I will say, go ahead, like, subscribe. We're on YouTube. We're on all good platforms for podcasts. Like, subscribe, because it's always happening on the pitch. Good night.